Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you.
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. If they take your dignity with their bigotry, teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough of all the money you're making. No more life gets taken. This is a proclamation. It's been 400 years and 400 days. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait. Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be with you. Special program today, hooking up with friends across the nation to talk about all things Juneteenth. I'm pleased to have joining me today as co-pilot and co-host my friend here in Minneapolis, Lee Jordan. Lee, how you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly.
All right.
And I see you. And I see you as well.
And I want to thank the rest of the Juneteenth Nation that was able to join us here today. Yeah, and I'll let them introduce themselves when the time comes.
Okay, well, let's start by talking about how important this celebration is. I think too often we let the meaning of things slip into our back consciousness, into our feelings, and we don't really have that front of mind. So every time we get to be front of mind, I think we should. And today is certainly a day like that. So I'm going to start with you, Lee Jordan, and talk about the value proposition, why it's important that we look at, study, celebrate, and activate around the Juneteenth mission. And I know you're interested too in connecting, talking about the affiliation, the sistership, brothership between the Juneteenth movement and the movement to address sickle cell in Black America.
Well, first of all, once again, and thank you, Al, for this opportunity, and thank the rest of the Juneteenth Nation here for joining us, and the rest of your guests. Yes, sickle cell and Juneteenth have been connected together for a very, very long time. In fact, June 19th is actually Sickle Cell Day as well. And we have some wonderful, wonderful people involved with that, not only here in the Twin Cities, but across the nation. And most of those people are also connected with the Juneteenth celebration as well.
So talk about Juneteenth, what's happening in Minnesota, and then I'm going to have you introduce your colleagues from around the country.
Well, here in the Twin Cities, of course, we're doing our best to make sure that we do have a celebration that we all can be proud of and all can share, even with the restrictions of COVID and everything else that is kind of, as they say, the hurdles that have been put in front of us. But we just keep jumping, because that's what we do. So first of all, I'll start off by introducing Steve Williams, who's the actual vice president of the NJOF. And then we have Dee Evans, who's the co-chair. We have Sam Collins, who's one of the directors of the Juneteenth celebration in Galveston, Texas. Miss Taylor here is actually from St. Louis, the city of Illinois. And we have Coffee Wright, who was actually the Juneteenth director for Kansas City as well.
St. Louis.
So I'll let
St.
them.
Louis.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
Well, there's 50 states. I'm thinking I'm just going to flip up on one of them here. But I want to thank every one of them for their continued contribution to Juneteenth. We also want to give a shout out to Reverend Myers, who kind of brought all of us together under the banner of Juneteenth and all things Juneteenth. But at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Steve and let him speak for a minute.
Hey, welcome. Thank you very much, everyone. Hello, National Juneteenth Observance family and the Juneteenth Nation. Thank you very much. I want to thank Lee Jordan, who's the regional director.
We may have some bandwidth problems. We've got a large group here. Let me ask everybody, when you're not speaking, put your microphone on mute, and that'll save bandwidth, I think. So let's do that. And Brother Williams, we heard you for a second or two. So why don't you come at it again, if you would. If we don't hear you, we'll simply move on to your co-organizer leader, Sister Deborah Evans. But Brother Williams, try it again. No, so we're not getting any sound from you. Dee Evans, are you there? Can you unmute?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I'm here.
Good. Why don't you just jump in and talk about the background? I know you guys are joined at the hip in trying to make this important endeavor significant and powerful. Talk about it, if you would.
Okay, thank you. First of all, let me just say that on February 25th of this year, bills were introduced in both the House and the Senate for recognition of Juneteenth as a national holiday. So the bill is S-475 in the Senate and H.R. 1320 in the House. And we're asking everyone to contact their congressman to become on as co-sponsors of the national bill. So we're hoping that that gets signed immediately. We do need their support, and we're asking everyone how to get their signatures, and if they need information on how to find out who their senator is, they can reach me at communications@nationaljuneteenth.org, and I can send them the link to tell them how to find who their congressman is anywhere in the country. Second of all, National Juneteenth, as Lee said, was founded by Reverend Ronald V. Myers Sr. He was a medical missionary, and we lost him a couple of years ago, so it's taken all of us to pick up the slack of where he was at. We have affiliates in all 50 states. Also, we have Juneteenth celebrations also in Guam, Japan, and Ghana. Right now, we have legislation in 49 of those states, and we were responsible for about 45 of those legislations across the country recognizing Juneteenth. So that's where we stand at the moment. There are events across the country. We're going to be doing, I believe, Stephanie and Coffee will have the Bridge Walk. Here in Las Vegas, we have about 10 events in the suburbs, Las Vegas, Henderson, North Las Vegas. We're also into Reno. So Lee's got his events. Everyone has their own direction. There's no one Juneteenth point of view, but we all are the Juneteenth spirit.
Excellent. So let me just go on to a couple of other colleagues on the call. I see we have, go ahead.
I'm sorry, we cannot forget Galveston. Galveston is the star right now. We've got the Galveston wall with the camera. So Sam definitely has to tell you about that Galveston wall.
Well, let's go straight to Sam Collins. Brother Collins, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for this wonderful invitation to be a part of this conversation. As has already been stated, I'm in Galveston County right now. I'm not in the city, but Galveston is only about 12 miles away from me. I'm there often. What Dee was alluding to, this year we have a large public art project, a 5,000 square foot mural that's going to honor the United States colored troops and their contributions to fighting for their own freedom and for our freedom. They were not simply sitting waiting to be rescued, but they took up arms and fought for the freedom of themselves and for the fellow enslaved people that were left behind that couldn't maybe run with them and join the Union forces. So in Galveston, we have this absolute equality mural that is done by artist Reginald Adams. The Mitchell Historic Property owners allowed us to paint the mural on the side of a wall that's next to the location where General Gordon Granger came into Galveston and set up the Union headquarters. So there in Galveston at the intersection of 22nd and Strand, we have this massive public art installation that is going to expand the narrative to tell the truth to newspaper reports from July of 1865 when a telegraph went out from Galveston on June 20th that Galveston is now occupied by colored troops. So the author of that telegraph thought it important enough to include that information. And again, I'm glad to be a part of the family. I'm glad that Doc Myers brought me into the circle, and being in the Galveston location, nobody gets closer to Juneteenth than me.
Well, you know what? That's wonderful. You know, but brother, if you would, I'm a storyteller, my listener. I love stories. And it sounds like you are a storyteller. So I'm going to ask you to tell the story of Juneteenth. You mentioned, the march and the occupation, but put it in a story form. Let's make it real so that people have a picture of the story in our mind's eye, because you're describing it to us. Take your time, stretch out with it.
All right. So oftentimes I use the analogy of a green salad. The stories we hear often are the lettuce and tomato, but that salad includes croutons, bell peppers, green olives, onions sliced, and it adds more flavor to the story. So since Juneteenth has become popular, we're going to flavor up the story a little bit and expand it and tell you the truth of what happened. Gordon Granger did not arrive in Galveston by himself. He did not do the romanticized version of standing on the balcony and making this big public speech. Many soldiers, thousands of Union soldiers, including 75% of them being United States colored troops, came into Texas and marched all across the South, not just Galveston, but Galveston is recognized for the date with Juneteenth. But the message of freedom, everywhere they went, they expanded that message of freedom. And that's why it's so important that all of us are together. But in Galveston, people think about the soldiers riding into Galveston. First of all, Galveston was an island. They came by ship. When they arrived there by ship, Gordon Granger set up his Union headquarters at 22nd and Strand. From that location, he issued 5 general orders, with General Order number 3 being the one that freed the enslaved people of Texas. It was actually written and signed by Major Frederick Emory, who was under the command of Gordon Granger. So Granger did not write or sign General Order number 3, but he was the commanding officer. Major Frederick Emory was actually an editor of an abolitionist paper, and I believe he included the language, "This involves an absolute equality." So what we're in constant pursuit of is this absolute equality that was spoken about on June 19th in 1865. So I can extend it. I don't know how much time you have for my storytelling.
I got all the time you need. I mean, this is both fascinating and important. I don't think we can ever go short with telling the truth, right? I think what you're saying and the way you're saying it just makes so much sense. I think about, I'll even use me as an example. In the past, internally, we would always be using Juneteenth as a means to self-criticize, and we would criticize our people for having endured slavery longer than we needed to. And it was as if, which you've just debunked, that we were helpless, hopeless, and at the mercy of the beneficence of the cavalry coming from somewhere else, and that we had no hand in our freedom and liberation. You've just destroyed that. And
in addition to that, about 3 years ago, the movie Black Panther came out, and everybody was excited about going to Wakanda and drinking the purple drink. And what I tell people often is that we have superheroes in our family and in our communities, our grandparents, great grandparents. When I hear young people say, "I'm not my grandparents," They should be ashamed of themselves. I understand what they're trying to make a point about not taking the abuse, but the strength of our ancestors runs through our veins, and we should never be ashamed of what they had to endure, because without their survival, we would not even exist. So I want to report to them that we don't need to go to Wakanda. We can go to Galveston, St. Louis, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and you will find superheroes right in the mirror when you look at yourself and you're surviving. You will find superheroes when you talk to your grandmother, great grandmothers, and they tell you how they made it and overcame. We have superheroes right in our midst, and people say the news was late. The news was not late. It was at least published in 125 newspapers between October of 1862 and June 19th. That's one author research has found at least 125 newspapers that the Emancipation Proclamation was discussed, maybe not printed in full, but some reference to it. So this theory that, or this story that some guy on a horse got shot and the message was late, the message was not late. The Union forces had control of Galveston in October of 1862. There was a Battle of Galveston on January 1st, 1863, in which the Confederacy took control of the port back, and that delayed the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation. But even with Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, he did not free enslaved people in Union territories. But we do know that that was an important part of the military strategy that allowed those United States colored troops to then take up arms and help free themselves. First, they took off running to Union lines as they ran away to free themselves. Even prior to the war here in Texas, the Underground Railroad went to Mexico. So we were not just sitting there wanting to be enslaved. Our ancestors fought as hard as they could under the circumstances. And I think about my wife and my 4 children. I'm strong enough to run farther than them. At least at one time I was. They're stronger now. But the point was, would you leave your entire family and be free by yourself? So when people say I would have left, you would have left your children to be abused. You would have left the people you cared about. So there were some people that ran, but some people stayed because they love their family and they wanted to be with their family, even if that family had the possibility of being sold away from them. So I want us to stand up straight, hold our heads up, and be proud and strong people. We are wild lions. We are not zoo lions waiting to be fed and taken care of. We hunt when we're hungry, and we stand boldly and strongly and speak the truth about our history.
Steve Williams, I see you're back. Hopefully we got good audio with you now. Thank you, and apologies for any technology issues on our side. But you know what?
It might have been on my end. So, I applaud Sam for the exemplary example of self-agency, which is a key factor which is missing in our story of freedom. And so that's a key factor. One of the things over the past few years that we've discovered, that this group of people and historians, which Sam is a member of, is we have documented our self-agency and enhancing the story of Juneteenth to include that. Like he said, we weren't just sitting around from the beginning, even from before then, in the Revolutionary War, when people were talking about that third verse in the national anthem, that's because a lot of black people went to go fight for the British, because the British said, hey, y'all be free. So I'll pick my freedom over our country. And so they wreaked havoc. They wreaked havoc on America. It was about 20,000 to 30,000 black men during the Revolutionary War that fought actively against America. They were promised freedom. So the advocacy for our freedom has gone all the way back, and the effort and the chance, the opportunity to take up arms to enforce that and to gain that is a part of the story that really needs to be recognized. And understand that a lot of these men were free people. They were free men that answered the call to arms, especially in places like New York and Illinois and Kentucky and Kansas. So that's a key factor that we have to get in. I wanted to also say in the beginning of my message, I was going to talk and thank Lee Jordan for the last couple of years. he has created PSA announcements that have been sent out across the country. And we really appreciate his time, his effort, and his creative expertise in doing that. So I see
He's probably checking in and out again with the technology, but I'm sure he's still listening. We'll be back on in a second. But Lee has done a phenomenal job here in Minnesota as a standard bearer and as a communicator, letting people know and keeping people involved, aware, and engaged in this critical cultural and civic engagement and economic development opportunity. I want to go to my two St. Louis colleagues here, Coffee Wright, I think, and Sister Taylor, right? Coffee Wright is the Juneteenth director in St. Louis, Missouri. And Stephanie Bush Taylor is Juneteenth director of East St. Louis. Thank you both for being here. I'm from Missouri myself, as is my reporter on the call, Brenda Lau Gray. So we all have this Midwestern approach and sentiment about culture and the tenacity and stick-to-itiveness of our people. But welcome, Coffee Wright, and welcome, Sister Stephanie Bush Taylor. Talk about what you're doing in your marketplace to promote Juneteenth, and not only what, but why. What does it mean for the spirit of our people? And what does it mean for this proposition of agency? That's a great word, Brother Williams, for agency, Black people acting on our own behalf. What do you think? I'll go to you first, Stephanie.
Thank you, and it is an honor to be here. Last time I was in your great state, I was taking a walk along Graffiti Bridge, so you know, I was very excited. I am in Illinois. East St. Louis is in Illinois, so regionally, work has been getting done in order to make sure that we educate and engage each municipality, one municipality at a time, making sure that they understand and acknowledge our history. For far too long after the wars, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to hide the history and put it in a nice little bow. Here in Illinois, we're not going for it. We're the land of Lincoln. That's not happening. So we're going through with re-educating and re-engaging people and working along with NJOF to come up with proper educational tools that will not only empower, but will also get that, build a bridge towards sustainability, because we all have a right to thrive in our community. You asked specifically about how important is Juneteenth. Juneteenth is very, very important. Again, you will not be able to hide our history. We cannot work on equity until you uncover our history. And while they're trying to continue to hide our history, they're trying to change the narrative of what even the word equity means. So that needs to be up front and in everyone's face. Equality cannot happen without equity. Equity means we must take certain allowances in certain situations. So Lady Liberty, when she's dealing with equity and equality, she needs to remove the blinders at that point and come up with a solution that we can all live with. So again, in East St. Louis, as I turn over the mic to Miss Coffee Wright, we are working to build a collaborative. We want to meet on the bridge. And we want to bring awareness to some of the things that have happened in our community that are tragic and move us forward. As on the 501c3, I believe this should be a grassroots effort, just as it has been. And I'm happy to be a pillar of excellence for the state of Illinois as it relates to Juneteenth and structural racism, which is what we're dealing with. Ms. Coffee, you want to go ahead with our plans with the bridge and everything else, ma'am?
Thank you. I appreciate it. First, thanks again.
We don't have good sound from you, Coffee. If you can either check your microphone or turn your volume up or move closer to your mic.
Okay, is this any better? Can you hear me better now, or is it still?
Not much, really not much. Are you using microphone on headsets? Or
Yeah, I was
Standalone
trying to use the
microphone.
headset because oh, okay, stand alone. Let me take this headset. Is that any better? Is it any better?
Does anybody hear her better than me? Is it just me? No, we're not getting. I'm not getting
No,
a
I'm
good
getting all
sound.
that feedback.
Well,
Yeah,
I will
Okay.
go ahead and
yeah.
say, Miss Coffee, she is a wonderful and powerful woman. Miss Coffee has been facilitating Juneteenth in Missouri. Miss Coffee, anytime your mic works, please speak up. I know, again, we're doing the collaboration on the bridge. One thing I'm most pleased about our bi state collaboration is that Miss Coffee worked with NJOF and Ronald Doc Meyer for sure and came up with our new anthem. And I think that's very important because since slavery, we are ever changed. We are new people. These are new citizens born on this soil. Therefore, we are a new star bursting over the horizon. And Miss Coffee has come up with a wonderful musical rendition to help bring light to that. And again, we look forward to all the pictures from our bi state collaboration as it approaches.
Try your
Can
sound
you hear
again,
me now?
Coffee.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're so kind, Miss Stephanie. Uh, can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
better.
great. So I'm getting an echo, so that I put on the headphones. But hello everyone. Once again, my name is Coffee Wright. Thank you again, Mr. McFarlane, for allowing me to be a part of this forum. And I just want to say, in St. Louis, um, as far as I can remember back, I would say about since 1971, my family has been celebrating and recognizing Juneteenth. And so it's nothing new to me, but um, we were actually looked upon as strangers, though we made created our own holiday, and Juneteenth been around before I was born. And that's sad because Juneteenth should be a household name,
Hmm.
definitely an annual event, if not every day. As far as I'm concerned, Black history is every day, and Juneteenth is our history. So, with that being said, I'm excited about continuing to create awareness of our ancestors, the history of Juneteenth, education of Juneteenth. I'm so happy that NJOF is keeping us together so we can combine, share, and network with others, because we're making so much of an impact collectively around this country. You know, people say, "Oh yeah, I heard somebody about we had Juneteenth for the first time in my state," and I'm like, I probably know the people that did it because we all one big family. So I love that about NJOF. But then also, I love the fact that we are we stuck together despite of the death of Doc Myers, who really brought us all together. We have managed to be able to, in my opinion, we're now than we were before, because we continue to not only network, but we continue to move forward with the guidance of Steve and Dee. I think if it wasn't for them being the glue to keep us together, we probably will all be continuing doing our own Juneteenth. And so I respect that and admire that of them. But also, I just want to add that um, in St. Louis, we have several Juneteenth celebrations. And I encourage that at my celebration. I always say, well, everybody should be celebrating. If you just do it at home in your backyard, you need to recognize Juneteenth. But
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to one day we're having just one major Juneteenth celebration in St. Louis, because there are strength in numbers, and I think we can be stronger. We will be strong if we come together. You have people doing it only on a Christian basis, and they're putting just gospel music for their religion. You have people that's doing it on an African base, and it's all about just only the African ancestral traditions. And then you have people that, myself, I try to just include everybody. So I have gospel music, I have some R&B, I have some jazz, I have some blues. I'm not trying to stick Juneteenth or stigmatize Juneteenth with any one religion, because I don't think that's fair. Nor do I think only one religion is going to heaven. So therefore, I think it's a national, a matter of fact, a global event that should be recognized, by the entire, not only the country, but the world, and not just even a Black event, because the Pilgrims helped hide us, and they helped us to become free during the Underground Railroad and so forth. So it's not just a Black thing, although I'm proud to be Black and we celebrate, hey, this is America's, as Doc always drilled in my brain, Juneteenth is America's second day of independence. That's the best way he would always put it. And that's the best way I can explain it to people, that it's American second day of independence. I'm looking forward to this collaboration, the meet at the bridge, Bi-State Juneteenth with Sister Stephanie and her crew over in East St. Louis, because a lot of times people get St. Louis and East St. Louis. It's St. Louis. East St. Louis is a different state. That's Illinois. St. Louis, we have south, north, and west. The east part goes to Illinois. So for us to come together, I think this is going to be an awesome experience, as well as an awesome event for all of us. And again, I am proud to say, yes, I wrote the Juneteenth National Anthem. Got Doc's approval on it. So can't nobody tell me nothing about it. I don't care who like it, who don't. When Doc say it worked, because that was my mentor. And that, along with that, I'm proud to also add that in St. Louis, as of last year, we are now official paid holiday for Juneteenth. You work on Juneteenth, that's a paid holiday. That's in the Board of Aldermen Resolution 20. And I am the only unofficial, non-elected person that name is included in that. So that's not only a pat on the back for me, that's a pat on the back for NJOF, because we are constantly making progress. We made sure it's a paid holiday. And I was also, proud to be a part of the fight for it to be actually a holiday in the state of Missouri, which went back 2007. So again, I'm not the only Juneteenth in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm not going to claim to be the only one recognizing Juneteenth, but I am aware, I think, of the people, the handful of us that are doing it, and I anticipate on us growing. So I hope I didn't talk too much, but again, no copyright. I just wanted to share that with the world.
Hey, Coffee, you guys meet.
The NJOF does the advocating. NJOF is the official advocacy arm. NJOF has been pushing the legislation. We do have the documentation. So we are the leaders of this initiative. Illinois as well. We have a holiday as well here in St. Clair County, and it has gone past 2 committee hearings for it to be a paid holiday. Now it's on our governor's desk. So yeah, NJOF, that were often imitated but never duplicated.
You guys meet on the bridge this year. You bridge that divide. And Coffee, everybody else in St. Louis, so come on, just keep persisting at it. That's the Juneteenth mentality. Persistent and just keep at it. I'm just really excited about that. Make sure, that's one of my look forward to the things this year. Is that meeting, along with the Juneteenth flag being raised on the Statue of Liberty on June 1st. Okay, kick off the month. Okay, those are my 2 highlights coming up this Juneteenth.
Let me go back to Coffee Wright, and I'm just curious as to the lyrics that you penned, that you wrote. You wrote lyrics and music. Is that what it was, Coffee?
Actually, I wrote the lyrics, and an artist by the name of Fred Walker, a local jazz artist who was responsible for making sure that he took the courts to the highest level to make sure that musicians have the right to play music on the sidewalk musicians. He put together a jazz bass for it. And most recently, Steve and I have discussed collaborating with something, because he's a horn player himself. So I'm looking forward to if Steve and I can collaborate and do something with the music for Juneteenth. But yes, I wrote the lyrics.
So let me ask
some people say the poem. It happens to be a poem, but it's the anthem.
I'm gonna put you on the spot and have you present the poem. Do you have a copy of it handy or know it by heart? And if you do,
I know it by heart.
Why don't you go ahead and present that right now?
Up anxiously all night, New Year's Eve, awaiting to learn what our faith would be. Thousands of prayers went up for the blessings to come down, pleading to God, remove the shackles from our ankles now. Excited when it was announced, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Slavery will be abolished, read the documentation. Effective the year 1863, in the middle of June. Yes, freedom, freedom, all blacks' freedom was well overdue. December the 8th, 1865, the 13th Amendment ratified. Abolition of slavery in this nation. Cease human sales and forced labor on every plantation. Our ancestors' births, fights, and deaths should never be in vain. From this day forward, we uphold strength in our name. Recorded no official date, so we acknowledge the entire week. Proudly celebrate our independence all 7 days. Worldly recognized, we honor Juneteenth.
Powerful. Very nice. Applause, applause.
Thank you. That's Steve giving me the eye. I don't think he liked the 7 day thing that I say, because I always notice that eye every time. But we recognize it the entire 7 days, and I'm thinking of just rewriting it so I don't get the evil eye from Steve and just push the 19th a little stronger.
No. It's not the evil eye, but I would say one thing that per our axiom, none are free until all are free, and making the emphasis on Juneteenth being nationwide, acknowledging the absolute last people to be free in America on June 14th, 1866, is something that we should really that we got across to the Senate. We got it across to the government, the legislative team of the NJOF. They got it across that. And the last verbiage for the bill that was accepted before it became what they call a zero findings bill, right, included that verbiage in it. And that's an important part, because there's so much to learn from the Oklahoma Juneteenth. Not that it was specifically anything any better than any place else, but as W.E.B. Du Bois said when he came up to Tulsa, he said he's seen people all over the country, but never seen them as prosperous and as working together as he has saw on Black Wall Street. And that connection from Juneteenth to Black Wall Street is a definite one there that we need to emulate. And Black Wall Street wasn't the end of the economic boom there, as they might later think. It was much more insidious than that. I don't want to go into a big thing, but that is all tied in. Surprisingly, that the last people who are officially free, and a nation is a state and its territory, that the last people exactly free that had the advantages of some semblance of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment afforded to them, were able to create an economy that was so great that everybody recognized it and forced it to become a state. Because Oklahoma was really called the land of Lincoln. That was Lincoln land. They wanted to turn it into an all-black state because they thought it would fail, but it didn't.
See, I never heard that before. This is my first time hearing that, and this is absolutely fascinating. So tell me more about that. I mean, and take this conversation, if you would, Steve, to the level of philosophy, to the level of meaning, what all of this means. What's the context in our unending bid for freedom and for the recognition of our dignity and our position of equity and power at the table of decision for all human beings. Flow from there.
So, as A. Phil Randolph said, there's no reserved seats at the banquet table of nature. Juneteenth is our ability, is our exercise of freedom. When you exercise freedom, that's called liberty. The Declaration of Independence of July 4th was set to free the land from England, as Doc would say. Okay? Juneteenth freed the people. But in between, there was this thing called the Constitution, which has a lot of stuff in it. The core thing of the Constitution was the protection of their freedom, the exercise of that freedom, to secure the blessings of liberty for us and our posterity. Juneteenth is exemplified by doing that, by taking your self-agency, as I say again, into your own hands. Black people, especially in Oklahoma, but around the country, did not acquire freedom and then sat on their hands and worked for master, right? We hear a lot about the sharecropping, but there was a lot of building going on. Oklahoma is an encapsulation of that. And what I mean by that is that they were granted land, they were granted rights to vote and citizenship inside of the nations. They were able to build economies and towns and trade one more than the another to build these black towns, right? From Langston, Oklahoma up to Tulsa, Greenwood District. And we were able to work cooperatively together in a real Juneteenth centric mindset, right? And so that's the real benefit of Juneteenth. We do not mind you having a great celebration, a great commemoration of that day. But Juneteenth is much more than that. It always has been, have grown up in the Juneteenth family. It is about doing that. It's not surprising that when you go to a lot of these places like Seattle, like Los Angeles, like Denver, like Kansas City, that you see the big Juneteenth people are barbecue guys, barbecue men, they're entrepreneurs. They they exemplifies Juneteenth as being that type of entrepreneur. So that is the real message behind it. We could always just sit up and everybody, say, "Hey, it's Juneteenth," and go about doing what we're doing. But Juneteenth, especially among the NGL family, has to mean a lot more. You have to let people come away with something, an action item that they can take to actually make their life better, right? Every year we have a theme and a focus in order to encourage that. And so those, especially over the last few years that have been listening, we've paid tribute to Black women in the military. We've honored our ancestors. We've worked on combining and perfecting unity, right? This year, we want to explain to people that Juneteenth is about prosperity, but it's not about the prosperity and financial, what everybody thinks about first, but it's about the mental, the physical, and then the financial prosperity that we have to have. We're there, but we have to have that manifestation in these three earthly realms. We have to deal with that. And we have to do the appropriate things. So Juneteenth should be an enable people with that. I'm here in Las Vegas right now on a mission to overcome some brothers who are sisters who are not Juneteenth, right? They wave to jump up and down and they go to Juneteenth parties every year. But when something comes to say, hey, you got a group of poor people over here, kids, 5,000 of them, and they don't have internet access, yet you guys aren't helping them. The corporations behind it aren't helping them. The real thing about Juneteenth is we are bridging the digital divide to give people information. And we thought it'd be in rural places. We're in the urban parts of that, and we're fighting our own people to get resources and knowledge and capabilities to our own people. And even have the ability to have people on our own forums ask us, well, what's the purpose? How does that connect with Juneteenth? It's actually embarrassing. You have to be able to have knowledge and information in order to build, in order to grow, in order to sustain that. And that's Juneteenth every day. That's Juneteenth every day, to understand our history, to understand our background, and to empower us. Sam's there at the mural right now in Galveston. And that's an impact of technology. It's a picture, but it's an impact of technology there, right? And without the technology, it doesn't come to life for you, right? We have to take control over that. So there's a lot to that, and I want to kick it over to Sam because he's got a focus in there. Sam?
Yeah, I was sitting in the car and I just decided to drive over. I told you it was less than 12 miles, so I'm at ground zero where the Union headquarters was located. So in this parking lot where the cars are, there's no building. But behind us, the mural is now on display 365 days a year to talk about this history. It's not just going to be one day. It's every day that it will be celebrated. So I don't know if y'all have some questions, but
walk us through the mural.
And the bottom has absolute equality written because the bottom line is absolute equality.
Yeah. Walk us through the different bubbles. Go down to take us on a tour on what each image is.
So the mural begins with the almond sculptures to show the presence of the Africans in the New World prior to Columbus. So the almond sculpture is there at the bottom. Next, you have Esteban or Esteban Vinico He was shipwrecked in 1528. So you often hear the date 1619, but in Galveston, the first non-native enslaved person arrived in 1528 with Cabeza de Vaca and that Spanish exploration that left Florida and then ended up coming through the Gulf Coast to Galveston shipwreck. Up in the top corner of the mural, you have middle passage representation. You also have active African at the bottom and the African being a part of the middle slave trade. As part of the story that we have to acknowledge. You have Tubman representing a female figure. She was not in Texas, but we needed a strong female figure. The Underground Railroad ran to Mexico, not to Canada, because it was much closer, much easier to walk to Mexico than to walk to Canada. And Mexico had outlawed slavery in the 1820s.
Mm-hmm.
You have Abraham Lincoln with the broken chains. We already talked about the Emancipation Proclamation and his impact, but one of our team members, Carl Adams, discovered that William Costley was an infant child in 1841, the son of Nance Leggins Costley, who Lincoln helped to free in 1841. He grew up, joined the Union Army, and then was in Galveston for the first Juneteenth in 1865. That's an important piece of the story that people have never heard. And because of the amazing team in the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, that information is now being shared. Next, you have Granger sitting. I didn't want him standing above the soldiers, so I had him sit down at a desk and have the soldiers as men stand up behind him. He's a little bit larger than I would have drawn him, but he is part of the story. He issued 5 general orders. He signed 1 and 2. General Orders 3, 4, and 5 was signed by Major Frederick Emory. Next, we have an iconic image of Hotel Galvez that's here. Mitchell Properties gave us permission to put this on the wall, so we included that. At the top of the mural, and I can't see, the sun is on me. At the top, we have the astronaut, if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Humans' continued quest to go discover new lands, and then the Juneteenth flag is included in the mural, and the people continue to march toward this goal of absolute equality. And right underneath the Juneteenth portal there, or the marching portal, in the corner, you see some art that was done by local youth that was included in the mural. And in addition to that, at the bottom of the mural in the black, you can see the entire General Order number 3 is written all the way across the mural, so that people will read the entire General Order number 3. What we will also be able to do is take the technology, your smartphone, point it toward the mural, and there will be videos that will play and teach you the history of the images in the mural. So it's the augmented reality is done by a young man named Danny Asbury L. and his nonprofit SOL International. The mural was painted by artist Reginald Adams and the Creatives. Sorry about that. I had a incoming call. Everybody trying to get in contact with me, but I'm trying to back up so y'all can see the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the mural was painted by Reginald Adams and a team of artists called the Creatives. Dantrell Boone, Joshua Bennett, David Baylor, Sampson Adenugbe, Cherry Meekins. It was about 5 or 6 artists, and I hope I didn't miss anybody there. But this is all a part of what we're doing here in Galveston at Ground Zero, where Juneteenth happened, the birthplace of Juneteenth, all things Juneteenth.
What an amazing tour. What an absolutely amazing tour. You know, and it's like you were saying, Steve Williams, this technology is enabling us to connect in ways we never could before. And this connection allows us to remind each other of our essential truth. And the truth that we possess and can share is a truth that defies the disinformation and the strategy, the intent of our oppressors to deny our humanity and to maintain this system of supremacist thought that really not only suppresses our humanity, but at the end of the day, suppresses theirs as well. And so go ahead, Sam, what's that plaque you're going to show us now?
So in 2014, we installed this Juneteenth plaque here on the corner of 22nd and Strand. Dr. Myers was here. He and a few of fellow musicians played that day. Galveston did not have a Juneteenth marker until 2014. I specifically went to African Americans in the community to pitch in to pay for this. I didn't want anybody else to do this for us. It was about $1,900. And even me, myself, in 2012, when I was raising the money, I thought it was a shame that I had not noticed that there was no Juneteenth marker in Galveston. So in 2012, I helped raise the money. I delivered them to the preservation organization here. We paid for the marker. We did this. This was the start of us recognizing this history at this intersection, 22nd and Strand, which has now led to the additional mural that will be on display 24 hours a day, seven days a week, 365 days a year.
It's just simply amazing. D. Evans, let me ask you to jump back in here. And I know that, like me and the rest of us on the call, there is an obvious sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment, but also a sense of how much work we have to do in each of our communities. But more than that, in connecting our communities and our work and our visions to create sort of a master opportunity that we will call freedom and liberty for our people. What do you think, D. Evans?
Well, I agree with you. First of all, as a Chicagoan, I'm immigrated over to Las Vegas, but I am a Chicagoan. My family left the Tennessee area after 6 of my family members were lynched. And they settled in Kinloch, Missouri, and the Sandusky area in addition to Chicago. And I want to make a point that I'm so happy to see the Illinois, Missouri, and Wisconsin group, the coalition has come together this past year. We are working together to accomplish so much. I'd also like to give points to our education group, who is looking into all these facts and vetting them. We're not just taking someone's word, we're actually going through newspapers. We're doing the research that's needed. And so we're going forward with everything, and Sam has shown us most beautifully how we can get the message across. Even if you don't know the story, there's a good chance that you're going to see this picture on the wall and you're going to stop and find out what it's there for. We're passing the message on. We've got to do better for our grandchildren. I worked in Chicago with Lestine Byers, who obtained the legislation in Illinois. She was instrumental. And in 2005, Senator Barack Obama was our parade marshal in Chicago before I came out to Las Vegas. So and we've got to let people know, it's not a Texas holiday. Juneteenth is for everyone. We are the subject matter experts. If they have questions, then they can come to us. And if we don't know the answer, we will find a way of getting the answer to continue the message on forward for our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren.
Did you know my friend in Chicago, Bill Garth, by any chance?
I know the name, but I've never had a chance to meet the gentleman.
Bill Garth owned the Citizen newspapers.
Citizen newspaper.
Yeah.
On Cottage Grove, yes, sir.
A publisher like me. And I want to raise the question to all of you. How are you working with the Black press in your marketplace? And before I ask you to respond to that, Coffee, same thing. St. Louis, I've got relatives there. I wonder if you know and I'd be remiss if not mentioning his name, my cousin, Robert Powell, who owned the Portfolio Gallery in St. Louis. Are you familiar with him by any chance? And I think we're kind of frozen up now, but if you hear the message, hear the note, come back, Coffee, or if you do, Sister
Taylor?
Sister Taylor, yes, Sister Stephanie.
I am familiar with the Portfolio Galleries, absolutely. Great. And yes, again, this Juneteenth mission is a wonderful breath of fresh air that's needed across the country. As Ms. Evans said, in Illinois, whether it be Forest Park, Cook County, any super city, but also stretching all the way across to southern Illinois. We are all connected. We are now connected in Missouri, and we are also connected with Wisconsin. We also just got a recent call from, oh my goodness, they'll be mad at me. But that's the thing, it's happening so fast.
Yeah.
But we need people that have a heart and really understand the mission. This is not something that you put on like a pair of jeans. This is a mission, and this has to do with our God-given right to actually thrive in our community.
We got about 5 to 10 minutes more before we close this out, but I wanted to thank you, Dee, for telling your personal story. And I love personal stories. So I'm going to go back to Stephanie and then to Sam and Lee to close out. Steve, if he's back, he's working over in the side there. But what's your personal family story? I think that's so important. I mean, for you, Dee, to tell us that 6 people in your family suffered lynching, that means that all we're talking about is personal. This is not
Yes.
theoretical. It's not historical, though it is. This is real to you right now, and it'll be real to your descendants as well. Stacy, talk about your family for a minute and your lineage, and what makes you the Stacy. Excuse me, not Stacy, but the Stephanie Bush Taylor that you are today.
Well, my father, he's retired the military, chief master sergeant. Before that, it was Mississippi. His family was separated, and he did not know his father because he bucked the system. When the white man told him to do something, my grandfather told him no and hit him in his face. So that made him have to leave out of Mississippi and had me have an estranged grandfather that I still to the day don't know. That bothers me. It bothers me that in the community that I live here in East St. Louis, that they have come and poisoned the land, but yet they have people living on the land. It bothers me that when I decided to grow my natural hair, that they tried to kick me out of the job. But I told that white man, because you did that, you go back in the back, you come back out with a raise, and you come back out with a better position.
There you go.
What we need to teach people to become self-actualized, learn your history, because knowledge is power.
Steve, take a minute if you would and talk about your personal story, your family story. Where is your family? What's your lineage?
From Arlington, VA.
My family is split on my mom and my dad's side. My dad's side of the family is from Mississippi. My mom's side of the family is from Oklahoma and Kansas City. My grandfather, who did a lot to shape me, was a Juneteenth person, reparationist, and he fought everybody and everything around him. His dad was a well-known minister throughout the Oklahoma territories. And I even to this day, I just met somebody else who was with Juneteenth in Kansas who attended my great grandfather's church. So the Juneteenth comes that way in my family, right? It's just always was a thing with us. On my mom's side of the family. On my dad's side of the family, Juneteenth was also big with them, even though they were from Mississippi. Part of their family is Seminole, and they were part of the Seminole tract that came through the journey to Oklahoma and then eventually to Mexico. So I grew up, going to Juneteenth in Lake Elsinore, California with Uncle Jack Pugh, or in Kansas City down on 15th and Vine, or in Denver with Daddy Bruce Randolph, as a matter of fact. So traveled around and was always about, my grandfather, he was born in Rennesville, Oklahoma. Rennesville, Oklahoma is an all-black town. It was the the birth. Some people say the birthplace of real barbecue. It was the first stop coming out of Fort Worth on the cattle drive that black men used to, drive cattle up to Kansas City to the railheads. Um, it was also the first place where black men outnumbered won the battle against white men in the Civil War. Was Rennesville, Oklahoma. Um, this is a little town, population 90. Um, John Hope Franklin was born in Rennesville, Oklahoma. His dad, Charles Franklin, is from Rennesville, Oklahoma, and that's where they were at and came back and forth during the Tulsa massacre there. D.C. Minner is a famous blues guitarist. He's from there. As a matter of fact, on the corner of the Roadhouse, where my great grandfather, my grandpa built the fire station down the road. My great grandfather built the church down the road, and in the middle was the Roadhouse, where everybody used to stop at, where their moonshine used to be sold at Rennesville. And so today we have a big, as my great grandfather, Bible in one hand, gun in the other, and a bottle of moonshine in the back pocket.
Amazing. I think Sam's got some more documents to show us. And Sam, we're asking, I'm not sure if you can hear us all, each member on the call to tell their personal lineage and story, because I think that all of us are standing on the shoulders of our parents and grandparents and the people that preceded us here. But you had a couple of interesting documents up. Explain those documents, and then take a minute and talk about what brings Sam Collins III to this moment in history.
Yeah, as I stated before, we all are here because our ancestors survived. I've traced my history back to the mid 1700s. That includes the history of enslaved individuals and enslavers that were part of my DNA because of some unfortunate events that produced the mulatto children. But if those mulatto children had not been produced, I would not be here. This is a Juneteenth Legacy Project poster that's here on the wall. For more information about our Juneteenth Legacy Project, you can go to www.juneteenthlegacyproject to get more information. This is just some signage with a QR code, so when people visit, they can see the information. Once you get on the page, we have a live webcam on the building across the street there, that red brick building. There's a live webcam on the corner where you can see the mural 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at night. We eventually will put lights on the top so that it could cast down the light so people can see it at night better. But my history, my family history, here in Texas, we have family reunions every year, and it's important to honor the ancestors. I would not be the person that I am if it wasn't for my grandmother and parents, my dad, my mother, just all the ancestors that came before us. So I want us to remember that as we pursue this absolute equality is not equal results, but it's the absolute equality of everyone having the opportunity to become their very best self for the benefit of the community as a whole, without any barriers or hurdles or anything put in place to hinder that development. The better individual, the better family, the better community, the better city, county, state, nation, world. So as we get closer to this absolute equality, I think it's very important that we continue the work that we're doing together. I want to thank Lee Jordan for inviting me. I want to thank the Juneteenth family, all of us together without my brothers and sisters. And last but not least, Galveston forever, not Wakanda.
Coffee, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Coffee, right? Jump in and talk about your family. Take a few minutes and talk about whose shoulders you standing on. And you have to unmute Coffee. There you go.
Can you hear me? I apologize for these technical difficulties. Yeah, I'm standing on so many shoulders, as I said, I can remember from 1970, as back as 1971, my family celebrating and recognizing Juneteenth, and they would do it in the park in Forest Park, and they were like hippies, and so they would, it was, they were educated, so they would, go back into a lot of deep things that they didn't teach us in school about our ancestors and about, and so forth. But it's just incredible. The I guess the way that everybody has something to bring to the table, and that's what actually molds us and gives me my energy, because my fight is for economical and political power. And so I can see that, of course, economics and poverty kind of go together. The lack of funds in our community, um, which also stems to the crime in our community, and not knowing about self, and not knowing where we came from, not knowing, realizing who we are, why we deserve more. I remember I'm the darkest in my family, and that's where the name coffee came from. And I remember people saying, "You so black, you look like you came from Africa," and I would be offended as a child. And I'm just so proud to say, yeah, you darn right, I came from Africa. I came from Queens and Kings, baby. So in order to be able to appreciate my grandmother, my grandparents, my mom, who believes in wherever there's a will, there's a way. Rules are made to be broken, and you don't have to accept even rules, And that's I fought hard when I ran for United States Senator for the state of Missouri in 2018. Juneteenth being a national holiday was definitely on my platform, and I'm looking forward to that actually, coming, you know. But so it's just so many people's shoulders. When we were kids, Percy Green, he's a well-known advocate and activist right here in Missouri, and actually nationwide. He scaled art. If you look him up, he gave a Juneteenth event that, to me, helped my friend and the community understand more, and in Fairgrounds Park. And so, it was music and a bump contest. I won a bump contest. I never forget it. My sister and I. But the thing is that by people doing things that they think maybe really is not a lot, a little bit helps. A little bit, just passing the word, spreading the word about Juneteenth, about who we are, about our freedom. It really helps us to love ourselves. I believe it's deeper than just a party. It's deeper than just some barbecued and Kool-Aid and strawberry drink. It's about recognizing who we are, so we can understand more where we can go and where we're going to go. Because a lot of times we think, oh, you can't. The things that we see on television and magazines, we think it's not for us. A lot of times we think that's for white people or it's for people with money, but it's achievable. And I think through Juneteenth, knowing prosperity is one of our main, at least, that's one of our main issues: prosperity, economics, and so forth. And that's going to help our people come up as a whole, I believe. I think Juneteenth is going to play so many elements and components that Juneteenth has. It's going to help us with crime. It's going to help us with finance. It's going to help us with political power. It's going to help us with so much, because we can be proud of who we are and where we came from. So that's what I wanted to share. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Stephanie, go ahead. I see your hands up.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to piggyback off of coffee. My father used to ask all the time, what are you going to do? You see the injustice, you're whining and complaining. What are you going to do? And I think, I thank God that we've got a group of people on the call and across the country that are going to do something, because, again, we do have that same right to thrive. We're a bunch of traumatized people that were taught, hide your history, take away your culture, do these things so that you can fit in. Thankfully, we're at a time in our lives now where we can start to begin to say, hey, this is normal. It's natural, it's God-given, and we do have these rights. Thank you for that extra talk, sir.
And you can be yourself, right? I'm going to close with you, Lee Jordan. Before I do, I'm going to ask my colleague, Brenda Lyle Gray. She can talk about her background and a little bit about mine. Brenda and I were in kindergarten together in Kansas City. That's been a year or two ago. Brenda, how you doing? Unmute and talk about our neighborhood and share the same thing, shoulders you stand on, that we stand on in our bid for freedom.
Well, Al and I grew up in Kansas City in an area called Santa Fe Place. And it was an area where the Santa Fe and Kaw River, I believe, crossed. And so that's why they named it. But it was the only area where Blacks could buy real estate. So I think we had a different childhood, and I mention that to Al a lot because we had each other, and our neighbors were very community-minded people and very spiritual, and really pushed us and expected a lot from us, and it was fun. But we were also revolutionaries. Al tells the story of my becoming a revolutionary at 5 years old. I wouldn't sit on a dance hall floor where Blacks had to go to kindergarten. And it was just one of those days that I just wasn't going there. But, we had teachers that taught us our history. But it wasn't in the textbook. I remember that my first grade teacher would take National Geographics and tear them up and would glue pictures together and put a history together because that history wasn't in any type of textbook we had. So I'm real excited to hear about all of Juneteenth celebrations across the country. It's time, and it's very timely coming off of what we've just come off of as far as the disparities being unearthed, and also the victory we had in the courtroom thanks to our Attorney General and his great team. But the work is ahead of us now. And I mean, a lot of work, especially for our children. So I wish you all the best. I'll be writing and researching now because the mural has gotten me getting ready to get on the internet and find out about Galveston.
Lee, why don't you jump in here and talk about, wrap this up. I forgot to ask everybody to weigh in on the Black press. So I'm going to, before you, Lee, you're going to have the last word, Lee Jordan, and thank you for curating this important conversation. But I want to go to Steve and Dee and Stephanie and Sam and Coffee, and tell me what your relationship is with the Black press in your community, and what can we do together to cement, to grow, and raise that up even more, because I think we obviously are critical to each other. And I'll start with you, Steve Williams.
Well, the most of the Black press that we deal with, I deal with, is in Washington, D.C. area. And they are just now beginning to really start to trend with Juneteenth. It's a shame. We've reached out to him before. Doc was a big person for reaching out to the press and the media. A lot of people just thought it was some type of fad or hype or whatever it was.
Picnic or something,
yeah. Yeah, that's a bad word. But we'll stay that for another conversation. A cookout, a barbecue. Okay. Especially the old English spelling of it. But now that, there's a lot of work to be done, the Black press can do one thing that can really make a difference for the late coming to the table. And I'm sure that everybody would agree here. We would not be talking about a holiday unless 47 states acknowledged Juneteenth one way or another. And 43 of them states came on the back of one man, the Reverend Ronald B. Myers Sr., MD. Okay, Juneteenth, their father, minister, uh, uh, um, a musician, and that was his mission. And that was a prerequisite